as we handle the business of the Brunswick Housing Authority,
That's right.
that you inspire every action, every word, every thought that we have the betterment of our community. And all these things I ask in Jesus' name.
Amen. Just gonna preach there a little bit.
Senior junior deacon. No.
I think we got our.
Senior junior deacon.
Right now.
I think he can give the invocation from now.
Oh, yeah. Okay. We'll move on to approval of the agenda. Any changes or additions or subtractions that we need to do? If not, I'll entertain a motion for.
Move to approve the agenda as presented.
We have a first and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion? If not, all in agreement for approval, raise your right hand. And Ms. Dr. Johnson, can you hear us?
I can.
Okay, we need
I can hear you.
we need an aye or a nay from you for the approval of the agenda.
Aye.
All right, thank you. We're going to move on to item C, approval of the minutes from the April meetings. Preferably you've had a chance to read through them. Any corrections, staff or board members that you all found? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve the minutes from both the work session, open meeting, and the executive session held on April 8th, 2026 as presented.
We have a first and a second to approve the minutes from the April meetings as presented. All in favor, just say aye.
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 I switched it up on y'all.
It's like signing that.
Aye. So that's the ayes have it. We'll move on to new business. Item A, residential council. Totally.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
My name is Maisha Hosley. I am currently the president of the Resident Council. And this is my update. The Resident Council continues to actively engage residents through planning and community involvement. An interactive work session is scheduled for May 7th. That will also be our family night. And that will provide an opportunity for collaboration, idea sharing, and strengthening resident participation. On the 21st, that will be our resident council board meeting. And that will also be our resident empowerment, as well as the Good Neighbor Pantry. And we hold all three items on that day. So that way that'll give residents an opportunity to get in community service hours. If need be, you have 3 different events that you can attend. Additionally, we will have our first cleanup for the year on May 30th, beginning with Glen Villa, and that will be in collaboration with the city. And this effort aims to promote community pride, cleanliness, and resident engagement.
What's the date?
May 30th from 8 to 10. May 30th. Saturday.
Saturday.
So the May 7th family night, what time?
It is going to be at 5:30. Begins at 5:30.
The board meeting?
6. Yes, ma'am. The pantry closes at 6, so we start immediately after the pantry closes.
And the pantry hours are from?
4 to 6. And then the resident empowerment it will begin at 11. So that gives them 3 different times to have hours instead of rushing to try to find hours when they're needed.
We're gonna be at the empowerment.
I'm not sure yet. I can find out and I can have that answer for you at the work session, if not before. Any more questions about that before I move on? Okay. At the last meeting, as well as at previous meetings, residents have expressed a desire for mutual respect in all interactions between residents and staff. On several occasions, residents have said that they felt like they were belittled. They also have stated that they felt like the staff that they were interacting with did not care. I did let them know that that would be something that we would address. But I just wanted to make sure that that they know that I did hear what they said, and I am expressing that to the board as well.
Is that in general interactions or at resident council activities?
Oh, I don't do that in my not at activities, no sir. I'm sorry. No, that's in general, not
In general.
no, not at our activities, no sir.
Okay.
So they'll bring you complaints and won't tell you no names or anything like that?
Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they want to see if I'm going to say something about it or what can be done first. So I'm addressing it.
Y'all ever thought about getting a comment box?
Mhm.
I think that would be great.
We're gonna put one at all 3 amps,
Perfect.
and also here.
Make sure you put a lock on.
It is. Yes, ma'am. That's all I really have. I really don't have anything else. Any questions?
No. I do have one maybe for Mr. Basin. What's the HUD official complaint process?
Typically, they'll either try and call them or they'll send them an email and they will get through. It's not an easy process, but if you're persistent, you will be able to get a call back or get on the phone with someone share your concern.
Okay, and then on our end, the staff end, what happens once they get a complaint? Do they decide there if it's valid, or do they call there and do some kind of investigation?
I've had occasions where they would send me an email request and ask me to provide them with additional information regarding tenant's account or the tenant's issue. And we would forward the information. There would either be a back and forth or that would be sufficient. And other times I've just had them call me and said, hey, I got a complaint about such and such. And that was that.
And so do we do an investigation, or if it's something, 'cause sometimes I know we have what is called frequent flyers, and somebody's saying something that's over and over again that is not accurate or something. But anyway, how do we handle it when we get a complaint from HUD or from anybody else?
Typically, when we get it from them, it's something they want us to follow up on and give them a response. When we provide them with a response, I've never seen it go beyond that.
Okay. Is somebody tracking the complaints? Like, can you tell me how many complaints we're getting a month?
And that-
Okay. So nobody is kind of tracking them. We just dealing with them as they come up.
It's
That may be. I think that's something that we need to try. Just my suggestion.
I also think there's a difference between a complaint that rises to a HUD type violation and just common courtesy. So,
Right.
and I think we need to be in compliance with both of those, with HUD regulations and common decency. So, I think we're all ears as to how the resident council can get that information to the authority or to the board. And nothing's ever going to be perfect, right?
I mean, no, nothing's never gonna be perfect, but I do let them know that it's on both ends. And I mean, I understand it. I understand it from both sides. Way more than I should, but I understand it. Sometimes the way that you come off if someone is dealing with something and it may be personable to them, to you it may not matter at that time, but the way you deal with it, it makes a difference. So sometimes it's just taking a step back and reevaluating that can make a big difference in the way someone takes the way that you're speaking to them. Or just eye contact like what you're doing right now.
This is good or bad?
It's like you want to do something.
No, it lets me know that you're talking to me, that you're hearing me. You're not, everything else is out there, but you're listening to me right now.
All right.
So what I'm saying to you matters versus you paying attention to what he's doing.
Right.
So that can make a big difference. Just devote your time to that person specifically. Now, some people just pop up and think that they can just talk to you right then, when sometimes you can't stop in the middle of what you're doing in order to see them at that time. That happens. So
are most of these complaints from the residents coming from like where they live, their AMP offices, or is this when they come to this office?
Mixture.
A mixture.
Just depends on the situation.
Sometimes. I mean, everybody's allowed to have a bad day, but the way you deal with it makes a difference.
So would you suggest if it comes up and the resident asks, would you direct them to their immediate supervisor, which would be Ms. Smith? If it was
I can. That's if they want to go. I can't make you go, but I can tell you who you need to speak with. But if you decide not to, I can only provide you with the information. If you choose not to use it,
Understood. I just had two more follow-up questions. Did y'all ever get y'all space for y'all material?
No.
Is it any working, or y'all just settled?
What space? I'm getting. What was that?
T-shirts, resident council, activity equipment, and stuff like that. They were working to secure a space where they could have their stuff, and if a resident wanted to come in and talk to somebody from resident council, a place where they could meet with them at, like if it was like on a one-on-one type thing.
no.
So office space.
Yes.
Is there? Do we have enough? Can we find us some office space? Or is it?
You should be able to.
Yeah. That should be something can be done very easily.
Well, it's been a year in the works. I remember when I left, we were there, and then I was also going to ask you about T-shirts and sales. We haven't heard any updates on that.
We're starting those back.
Mhm.
Because it was kind of hard to get off work, go get them, then actually have them, to be in different places. So with here, so it'll be much. And by the time I get off, I'm ready to go.
Understood. Did y'all secure y'all's laptop?
Yes.
That's all I have.
What was the last question? You say?
They were working to get a laptop,
Mhm.
so I was making sure that they
Oh,
We did.
okay.
got it.
Everything that as far as like with everything that we spoke about prior to you leaving and everything's been in the works.
We are gearing up for our next year's budget.
Mhm.
We will look forward to resident council telling us exactly what they need so we can give it to you guys.
Absolutely.
We have to build y'all a building.
Okay.
Well,
That would require a vote. I vote yes.
We're down.
Any more questions?
nah.
You sure?
Yeah, I just want to make sure you all have what you need, but also the support. I mean, you're working 2 jobs. Other tenant council board members may be doing the same thing. So it's more difficult to actually operate. So we got to figure out how to provide the support and flexibility that you all will require to do this, to make this something that can grow. And I come at this with this being a state, at one time that was a statewide clients council up under the Georgia Legal Services. And they did some amazing things statewide. So, but anyway, and I was a part of a local effort to try to establish it back then, back when Pastor Wilson was working for the Housing Authority many years ago, and I attended some of the meetings. But the tenant council folk didn't run that; the staff ran it. So this is a whole different. This is very good. While we got things we got to get done, this is totally different from that. All right, I'm done. Anybody else? Dr. Johnson, you have any questions for the tenant council president?
Mr. Skipper, I think they're having some trouble hearing us on there.
Shows her as on hold. Yeah, the audio is really bad. Oh. Is that any better?
Is that better, Ben?
That is better.
All right, Dr. Johnson, do you have any questions? Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to the financial update. Ms. Newman.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I will share my screen. Is this big enough for everyone to see?
No, while I had my eyes checked today, I still can't see that one.
How about this?
That's better.
It's better?
Yes.
Great. So we're going to discuss our financial status as of March 31st, 2026, which is at the end of our third quarter of our fiscal year. So we just have one more quarter remaining until the end of our fiscal year. So typically, based on our budget, we're expected to be at about 75% of our annual budget, as in with our revenues and our spending. We would expect that around at the end of the third quarter, we would have received or spent the amount that we budgeted for under each program. So we're going to start with the public housing programs on AMP1. Year to date, we have recognized $1.184 million in revenue and $964,000 in expense. This is about a $219,000 net income for the AMP1 property. In AMP2, we have $1.2 million in revenue and $837,000 in expenses, which has given us about $396,000 in net income. So in both of these scenarios, we have received a little more than what we anticipated to receive in terms of operating subsidy and then tenant revenue coming in to these projects. And then our spending is a little below what we anticipated to spend. And so this is what has given us this net income throughout March. In AMP3, we have $924,000 in revenue, and then we have spent $759,000. Again, here we are also recognizing a net income of $165,000. So for our public housing properties, these financials are strictly looking at our operations and not the capital fund. For 2026, we have received our capital fund award. We have to go through the acceptance process in order to be able to start drawing down funds from the award. That was just sent out, I believe, at the beginning of this month. That's when we received the 26 award for capital funds. Any questions on public housing outbreak here?
I have one, Ms. Newman.
Yes.
And it's for probably Mr. Basin. The maintenance, are we, the surpluses, which of course we always want to have that, but does that mean we're not spending enough on maintenance of these apartments? And I don't know how you tell that other than to look at maintenance and the responses that the tenants are saying to the maintenance request.
So the short answer is no. Reason being is because when we take on larger projects, we have a capital project. So for instance, in Mercer, we just redid the kitchens. So that was a capital.
All of them? How many units are in this?
4?
I don't know, Chris. Looking at me, you might need to look at Ms. Smith.
And it took several weeks. It wasn't something that we could do. And I think at the end we ran out of the supply, so we had to come back like a month later. So typically the bulk comes from the capital. Overhead building like we've replaced, I think at this point almost 80% of the windows at the front and the back, along with the screens. And I think we're waiting for the last batch to come in. And these are large capital expenditures that we have to pull from not just one capital fund, but a different capital fund because it would exceed what we use all that funding for one project. I think in our annual plan, one of the things we were discussing with Mr. Williams was some of the upgrades we want to make in the units. Every time that we move someone out and move someone else in, we go ahead and do that upgrade. So, for instance, make it standard to go ahead and just replace the floor, not clean. That was one of the things we're thinking about, as well as the doors. I think at one point, a lot of the doors in the unit were they were the metal doors, and because of cost over time, we've gone to the doors that are wood, but there's nothing in between the inside and the outside of the door. So typically, we're replacing a lot of doors because in particular, you hit it or you push it hard, put a hole in it. And so we were looking again every time we move a family out and move a new family and go ahead and replace the doors. So these are costs that would save us in the long run, but they would be very high initially. One other thing is the countertops. We have the kind now, if you take a hot pot, set it on there, it's going to leave a mark where we'll have to come in and have it resurfaced or we have to replace it. So the other thing we're looking at is, well, if we go to granted, it's a little more expensive, but when you go to turn a unit, you won't have that problem anymore. So in the long term, it'll pay off, but in the short term, it's gonna be costly for us to make these changes. And these are things that we'll probably start doing going.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we were investing the money back into the units and in this effort. But if any questions from the commissioners? If not, Ms. Newman, you can proceed.
Thank you. I wanted to add to what Mr. Bazin said. Typically for our public housing units, HUD is expecting that we keep about a 3 to 4 month of reserve on hand, which means that, at the end of our fiscal year, when we present our financials, they look at that and say, for each public housing AM, based on the annual funding, do we have about 3 to 4 months saved? Just so in case of a government shutdown or we don't have funding coming in, we can always use those amounts to support the public housing properties. We actually just received for 2026. We just sent in an application today because HUD published out shortfall funding, which is the calculation that they determine based on your year-end financials whether or not your AMPs have enough reserve on hand. And we were short. And so we were eligible to apply for shortfall funding. It was a pretty small amount, about 60, 70,000. But the fact that we have a surplus right now in operations is a good thing because we're going to increase our reserve that we had at the end of the year. Hopefully, if we keep this trend up, we still have 3 months to go, but this going back in reserve also increases the fact that we have that 3 month or 4 months set aside for the future.
All right.
And so next is our Housing Choice Voucher Program. Again, this program is split into two separate funding sources. We have operations and then housing assistance payments. On operations, we have received $495,000 so far from HUD this year. The amount that we receive is based on HUD admin fee rates that are published per jurisdiction. We have two separate rates of funding, a column A and a column B funding. The column A funding for the admin fee is a little bit higher than column B. For the first 7,200 unit months that we lease up, we get a column A rate, and then the remainder is a column B rate. Currently, our admin fee rate has been prorated, and so we're not getting 100%, right, of what is due. So based on what we're reporting as, here's how many vouchers we have on the street, this is what we're administering. HUD goes in and calculates the rate based on the admin fee schedule, and then they give us that money. They always go in every quarter and do a reconciliation. They recently had just published that the administrative fees for HCV are being prorated at an 88% rate, which means we're due 100%, but there's not enough money, and so we're getting a proration of 88%. So far, we have $495,000. Our expenses are $701,000. So this program is showing a net loss, which means we're spending more than we're bringing in. The fix for that, for this year at least, same thing with public housing. We always want to make sure we have about 4 months of reserve on hand for the HCVP program, and so we're looking at adjusting our allocation base to decrease it to cap the amount that the HCVP program will contribute to the central office. Typically under asset management, the HCVP program can be charged 20% of the admin fee or $12 per unit cost for each voucher leased to the central office. And so we're going to cap it at that 20% of the admin fee. Hopefully, at the end of the year, this will decrease the amount of expenses in HCV, and we'll start to build that reserve for the 4-month reserve that we should have on hand. For our housing assistance payments, our budget to date is about $6 million. We've received 5.7. We've spent 5.7. And so with our housing choice, our housing assistance payments, we really don't have any room to lease more vouchers, to support any more vouchers based on our budget authority, because we are spending every dollar that we're getting in. I'll break here for questions on HCVP.
Commissioners, any questions that jump out at you? I guess trying to make sure I understand, and maybe that this would be at another type meeting, the calculations for operation and us only getting, are they saying there's not enough funding from HUD federal level? Is the reason we got only 88%?
That's correct. So every housing authority is receiving administrative fees per obligation, right? So based on the voucher that is being leased up, we're getting administrative fees, but then all of that fee income is being prorated at 88% because there's not enough funding, and then also we don't have a final federal budget for 2026. So we're still working on a continuing resolution. Actually, the 2026 admin fee rates have not even been published yet. So we're still working on 2025, and it's being prorated based on availability of funds.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So our central office cost center is a directly allocated AMP or project if you look at our business entity. And so what we do is we're charging all of expenses directly to the central office for overhead, for administration, and then we turn around and directly allocate this to all of our programs and projects. And so year to date, we have 1,063,000, and we have 1,099,000 in expenses. That number at the end of the year is adjusted to a zero because we directly expense everything out of the central office. The central office receives revenue pretty much just based on interest that is in the bank account, and all of the other revenue sources will come from the other projects and programs to support administration in the COCC. Next is our locally owned property.
One
We have-
minute, Miss Newman.
Yes.
Commissioners, do you all understand what you just said?
Generally.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Great. Locally owned, we have so far 366,000 in revenue, and our spending is about 222,000, which is showing a net income of 143,000. Next is our development arm, Coastal Phoenix. We're showing about 32,000 in income. This pretty much 100% is interest received from the bank account, and we have a few Habitat homes where there's a mortgage payment or land lease payment of about $25 each month for 2 homes that are owned there. And we're showing about 51,000 in expenses. Most of these expenses are the greatest expense to date is interest on the loan that we had used to purchase property last year. That loan is paid off. The CD that we took has been redeemed, and so the interest, the residual interest that was charged, is what is making up a lot of that interest that is showing on here. And so year to date, we're showing about 18,000 in a loss for Coastal Phoenix.
All right.
Any questions?
Which property is that?
That is our development arm.
Yeah, that's the nonprofit entity.
Yes.
And
The main one is the Gloucester Street. That's what we took the CD out for.
Any other questions?
not at this time.
Great. So next we're looking at Georgia HAP and NHC. Georgia HAP used to be the entity where we were posting all of the income received from our joint venture, NHC. However, that was split out. And so in Georgia HAP, what is shown as revenue, as you can tell, we don't have a budget set up. For the year, what is shown as revenue here is strictly interest earned on the cash in the bank account. And the $320,000 that we have spent so far this year is 100% towards resident initiatives, you know, for these memorandums of understandings that we have for different programs and resident services. And so far this year, we spent about $320,000. And lastly is NHC. We're receiving, we have received to date $1.4 million, and we've spent $43,000. That $43,000 is a direct allocation from the central office, and so about 1/12 of the monies that we receive through NHC is being contributed to the central office to help defray the costs, right? That overhead that comes from administering all of our programs. So that is where that $43,000 expense is showing up under NHC. And that is our dashboard through 3/31. Following our detailed reports, income statements for each entity broken out. So please take a look. If you have any questions, you can definitely run those through Mr. Basin, and I will try to get you answers. But of course, if you have any questions now, I'll take them.
I have a couple of just 30,000-foot questions. So over here on the far left, the total, looking at the net income actual at 1.87, and then we've got the percentage spent of annual budget. I just want to make sure that I'm reading that correctly. It's
so
kind
those percentages, and they're a little confusing. You don't want to look at the percentages as of how they compare to the 75%. Like, so we are at our end of our third quarter, which is we've gone through July through March of 2026. And if we split our budget out equally, our expectation is that we should be at about 75% of the budget that we put out. So those percentages as of the budget is comparing where we are compared to the 75%.
So we would expect, based on the 75%, that our net income would be about 2.7 million at the end of the fiscal year. Is that?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. So you want to look at that. Our financial, we haven't, unfortunately, our budget, the system that we're using, the software system, we have to get the budget set up. The plan is that next year on those financial statements that follow, I would present a budget to actual so that you can see what the variance percentages are, right, between each for year to date versus the current month. This dashboard is just looking at, well, how are we doing compared to where we're supposed to be right around this time? And of course, that number is fluid because we're looking at year to date. And so next month, depending on what happens in activity, the number will go up or down.
Cool. Thank you. That's very helpful. Also, you got me to do long division for the first time in about 15 years. So congratulations.
Thank you. Anytime.
My other question is on the locally owned in Coastal Phoenix, I think you answered it before. We're tracking to be about 150% and 240% respectively over budget. Is that about right?
Yes, because we expected that as of the 75% in expenses, right, it's about 110,000 under locally owned, and we have spent 222,000. So that is actually about 150% of the budget. However, if you look at how much revenue we have in versus our expenses, we're actually showing a net income.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're getting enough revenue and based on our spending, although our projected spending is lower than what we're actually spending. And it could be one of two things, when we put out our budget, we're looking at what we did the year before as of the time that we're putting the budget out, which is not the end of the year. And so at the year end, when we accrue invoices, or we have expenses that were not posted when we put the budget out, sometimes you see these variances between what we thought we were going to spend versus what actually happened. Again, our budget is always a projection to guide what we do. It's, I really try to recommend that we're not pretty much just sticking to, this is what the budget says and we're going over or under. We want to look at exactly what's happening. Are we getting enough revenue to cover our expenses? And if we are, we're always in a good place.
Fair enough. And I guess my final question as we look towards the next fiscal year's budget, is there a easy way to reconcile, I guess for lack of a better word, our operating budget here with our capital budget and our federal funds and just a full snapshot without going through all of the details of each income source and each source of expenses, just to where we can see, because I'm tracking what you're saying about the pulling from the capital fund for maintenance or from federal funds for office expense. But it would be helpful to see that, even if it's just a line item adjustment at the bottom to show where those funds are coming from, so that we can actually see them. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes absolute sense. This dashboard does not include any grants that we have, which includes the capital fund. So what I can do is put another page on this dashboard to show our grant activity, just so we see exactly what we're spending on the capital needs side. What the capital fund will show, just like our HCVP have, right? Whatever we spend in capital fund and we draw down, it's 100%. And so if I use $50,000 to remodel bathrooms and I draw down $50,000, that net effect is zero. That does not appear on this operator statement at all.
Right.
Yeah, it's a different line. So I can certainly add that in so we can see what our spending on the capital side is. Yes.
Great. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay, great. You're welcome. Anyone else?
I had one last one that around the COCC, and will this ever be revenues over expenses the way we're set up?
No,
Right.
it will not, because years ago when HUD mandated that all housing authorities go to asset management, they gave us options, right? Depending on how many units you had, how you were combining your apps. A lot of housing authorities, I know worked with a lot of consultants, did a lot of projections and came up with, this is what we're going to look like. This is what we're going to do. Our agency decided to go the direct allocation method, which means that our central office was not going to ever be, right, a revenue source. It's directly allocated. Everything that is spent in the central office is directly allocated to the apps. There is no reason why we cannot change that, but of course it would require that we look at how much, because when you go to a COCC asset managed module, you have different rates that you can charge a public housing amp, for example. There is a management fee. You can charge a bookkeeping fee, which is $750 per unit that is leased. Your management fee is also, HUD will give out saying you can charge, here's what the average multifamily management fee rate is. And then we get to charge $10 a unit for asset management fees. That is the cap. You cannot charge a public housing property any more than that. Section 8 has a list of fees that you can charge as well. Those are all capped. And so if you have a central office where your centralized operations carry a lot of the activity for your properties and your apps, it may be very difficult to cash flow. So based on projections, I wasn't here, I don't know how we came up and why we decided to go with this module. But as a directly allocated central office, we're not cash flowing at all. We net to zero at the end of every year.
And you don't have to do this now, but what would be your recommendation, you and Mr. Baston's recommendation going forward? Since there was a choice, is it beneficial to look at possibly changing this or staying the course?
We can always run the numbers, and it also is, I always say recommendation wise, based on what our strategic plan is. If we are thinking about repositioning our public housing properties, which means that these entities are no longer going to be funded under Section 9, and we're probably going to be moving either through RAD, a project-based vouchering, moving to a full Section 8 platform. As a business, it may make more sense to have a cash flowing management company, right? Because as we're providing these services, then we get to charge a management fee to these entities. But right now, based on what we're spending in the central office and looking at what our occupancy is versus what our management fee is, we can certainly run the numbers to see if moving to a COCC-based asset managed entity would be beneficial for the housing authority. Another thing to think about is, initially when I put out the asset management rules, we have a final rule for operations. There's still a debate going on about whether or not COCC funds are federal. So a lot of housing authorities, when they have started doing any sort of repositioning and doing different tax credit deals, they have actually set aside, they've developed or formed a non-federal COCC, that's what they call it. And then that's where they charge all their fees to these entities, so that in the future, if HUD decides to say, well, yeah, this is federal money, and so you still have that red tape around it, they can be free of that. And so we can certainly run the numbers. I mean, we have data do a 3-year in the past to see if we did run that module, what would have happened if that COCC wasn't directly allocated.
Yeah, I think so. I think that we're going to be looking at other things as we move forward, because since we play such a big part in the city, our footprint in the city is so large, and what I think the mayor and the city commissioner is moving toward to really impact to not just reduce but eliminate poverty in the city. We need to begin to look at something different.
Yeah, certainly. And RAD is actually not the only option, or tax credits are not the only option to reposition. I think we have been kind of sold that, here's RAD, but a lot of things that we don't think about is, these RAD rents, a lot of housing authorities have realized that, the RAD rent is equal to the operating subsidy and capital fund you receive for a unit. And in most areas, it's not competitive. And so you're still dealing with very low rents, and your subsidies are not high enough to cover that comparable market rate rent in the area. But certainly there's so many other ways, to go about it. But yeah, we can certainly look at running the numbers to see what it looks like.
Okay, yeah, and what the other options may be, Ms. Newman, that would be helpful for the board, I think.
Sure.
All right. Any other questions, commissioners, Dr. Johnson or Ms. Newman or Mr. Basin on the finances? Okay, if not, thank you, Ms. Newman.
My pleasure, as always. Have a good night.
You too. We move to 2C, the Fighters Group update. Mr. Evan Laws. Mr. Laws?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
And thank you. Yeah, no, I wasn't aware that we would be speaking during this meeting, so I didn't really prepare anything. We had been talking with Adam and Chris related to kind of the approvals that are coming through the Housing Authority for consideration tonight. But in terms of just general project updates, to give kind of an idea of where the project that was previously approved for a private enterprise agreement sits, the Glen Isle project at this point in time has secured a 9% tax credit award from Georgia DCA. We are in the process of just working through their final reviews and have kind of tentatively circled an early summer closing for the project to get everything financing in order and start the renovation at the property. So right now we're looking at early to mid-July to have that, work start out at the property, and then that will take about 12 months to get the project finalized. As of last week, we just submitted our loan application to HUD for the FHA financing that's going to provide the mortgage loan for the property, and that'll bring in, majority of capital for the planned renovation work at the site. And we are, we're moving, making good progress towards that July date to get everything wrapped up and start the work here. So we really appreciate the Housing Authority's partnership thus far, and I would pass it off to Chris and Ben to maybe discuss the specific agreements that are being presented tonight.
Evan, this is Ben. Do you mind just giving an overview of the amount of dollars that will be spent on the renovation and,
Sure.
and what you're doing at the site?
Yeah, that should not be an issue. Just give me 1 second here. I want to make sure I have the most recent information up in front of me. So our planned renovation at the property, in terms of construction hard costs, we have set aside or have budgeted at this point. I think it's, apologies, I'm just getting the latest scope up. All right. So at this point in time, we're circling about $88,000 in hard costs per unit here. So that is strictly costs that are going into the property, the units, contractor fees, kind of all of the other soft costs for the project are outside of that, but 88 directly to benefit of the residents and the buildings. The renovation activities that are planned in terms of site and building improvements, we're going to be replacing all the windows, the roofs at these properties. We're going to be upgrading all of the exterior amenities existing, which are the gazebo, pavilion, as well as a playground. Those will be brought up to current accessibility requirements, as well as DCA QAP requirements. We're going to be upgrading the community room at the K Street site. We're going to be adding a computer room and then putting in exercise room upgrades as well. Those are also existing amenities at the property. Full repainting of the exterior, and then doing some jetting of the sewer lines, repair of any damages to the plumbing mains there, as well as landscape repairs, and then repairs to the parking, so mill overlay seal on the existing parking lots. In terms of unit interiors, we're doing vinyl plank flooring throughout all units. Full kitchen and bathroom upgrades, so that's new stainless steel appliances, cabinet systems, and solid surface countertops. We're going to be doing new vanities and low flow plumbing fixtures in the bathrooms, as well as new tub surrounds and toilets. Interior drywall, full repainting, and then any Inspire related compliance upgrades. So GFCI outlets in the kitchens and baths, smoke detectors within bedrooms, hallways, any door hardware or interior door replacement, and then programmable thermostats within each of the units. And then we're going to be also, as I mentioned before, doing UFAS upgrades to 5% of the units to bring those up to mobility standards, and then 2% of the units for visual and auditory impairment. And as I said, that scope of work will start pretty much immediately upon closing of the project. So right now that's expected to kick off in July of this year. And then the work will take place over a period of about 12 months. And then we should be wrapped up, by July of 2027. And then working with the tax credit agency to get the place in service package submitted and all the fun tax credit compliance work on the back end.
Hey, Mr. Basin, you have anything to add?
I think the last time the board took a vote on the private enterprise agreement, there was just some language within the actual agreement itself that went back and forth between the law offices, and finally, after a few calls, everything has been turned out so that housing authority would find themselves in any type of leverage position or in an agreement that wasn't suitable, and that's all been ironed out, and it's been accepted by both parties at the juncture. So it's just kind of an update on what's going on.
All right, Ben, is there anything that you want to add?
No, I think that's fair. I mean, so we've had back and forth. Adam Kirk, who works with me, who's in the tax credit world, looked at the private enterprise agreement and the operating agreement. And so, I think it'd be appropriate to approve those, and we think they look good. Evan, do you mind? Yeah, I think you did this before, but we've got some new faces here on the authority. Can you go over what the fees would be to the housing authority for this project?
Sure. Yeah. So with the private enterprise agreement, a part of the benefit to the housing authority is a 18% interest in the general partner entity. And that correlates to 18% of the cash flow distributions throughout the credit period, or I guess the period that the housing authority would be a part of the transaction, which would, at this point in time be into perpetuity until a future disposition. 18% of any collected developer fee. Right now, that amount is $1.7 million. So the authority's percentage of that would be, just over $800,000. And then 18% of future disposition proceeds from a sale. So that would be, after the tax credit compliance period wraps up. So at earliest, year 11, at most likely year 15. And just the previous estimate that we had provided to the authority over the 15 years in the project, so that's the 15 years of the credit compliance period, was $1.3 million. And I think that was at a 15%. So it would be closer to, give me one moment. I mean, it'd be closer to about 1.5 million. And we can provide updated figures that are, more accurate to the current underwriting of the transaction, but it shouldn't have shifted much from, that prior estimate.
All right. There are no other questions. Thank you, Mr. Laws, for your update. And so you all keep us informed as we move through this process. We look to see the renovations get started as soon as possible.
Can you clarify just real quick the 18% ownership of the general partner entity? We are not coming on as a general partner, or we are?
18% of the general partner entity. Thanks, Ben.
So as a limited partner?
Oh, excuse me. We would be coming in as 18% of the general partner entity.
But DHA is not a general partner.
We're a limited partner, or we're just an owner, or some
You would be
other.
a
Owner through a limited partner interest, right?
Okay,
passive entity in the general partner.
gotcha. You scared me with that general partner word. Fair enough. Thank you.
And I do think it's appropriate if you are comfortable, to approve Mr. Baisden on behalf of the authority in, signing the operating agreement and private enterprise agreement.
Is that what is needed tonight?
Evan, when would you need it?
Because the chairman is not here, I would prefer us to wait
Right.
till he's here.
It was my understanding it would be considered tonight, but we don't need it in the immediate. We could, as I mentioned, we're working through closing here in June, early July. So if there was a later date where we would need to get approvals at, then we can plan for that.
All right, if Mr. Basin, if you can get it out, you and Ben get it out to us so we can have a chance to read through it and have options for any board members, commissioners to sit down with you all to go over the language. So it's in English for us. And Commissioner Clement is an attorney. He may understand it.
Barely.
And Ms. Hayes and Dr. Johnson, but I need.
I certainly do appreciate that. It's sincerity. I appreciate that. And I'm looking at it from a perspective of an individual and coming up from the perspective of 18% and what has been done previously. So yes, I do appreciate you, Commissioner Booker, referring back to our chair for our vote in proceeding forward.
All right. Okay. Thank you. That's the end of our new business section. And our next session is for executive session. So I'll entertain a vote to go into executive session for real estate litigation
Personnel.
and personnel.
I move that we
I would like to,
go ahead, Dr. Johnson.
I would like to make a motion that we move to executive session for this April 27th board meeting.
All right, we have a first by Dr. Johnson. Is there a second for executive session for personnel?
I second the motion to enter executive session for the purposes of real estate, personnel, and litigation.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. We're in executive session. And, we'll take a 2-minute break. to transfer over and allow others to leave.
Mr. Clement, you think we have to be,